of the universe.
It makes me so happy that he said both his own name and the name of this movie. Masters of the Universe is a 1987 movie about He-Man, but not the same character as the He-Man and the Masters of the Universe cartoon that started airing in 1983. You know, the one about Prince Adam who wields the Sword of Power and turns into a muscled beefcake with bangs. No, the live-action 1987 movie adapts the toy line, which predates the cartoon because the cartoon was made to help sell toys. It was basically a really exciting 20-minute daily commercial.
You can pit He-Man against Beastman playing for the power of Castle Grayskull. You have to put the castle together.
And I'm not insulting it, because as a kid, I loved the original He-Man and She-Ra cartoons. So it was very effective marketing. But before the cartoon, there were these mini comics that came with the action figures that depicted a much more basic storyline about a barbarian fighting an evil skeleton man from another dimension. And that's what they made the Masters of the Universe movie about. Kind of. Masters of the Universe was really about one thing: how to make a He-Man movie on the cheapest budget possible. The production was troubled. From start to finish, it was just a nightmare for everyone involved. And one of the biggest problems, out of many, many problems, was that they ran out of money. So the budget essentially dictated the plot. Filming Eternia would be expensive, but Earth is pretty cheap. Got a lot of Earth all around us, so just set the movie here. He-Man's sidekicks like Orko and Battle Cat would require a lot of costumes and special effects, so we'll just pair him up with a couple of scrappy Earth kids. By the way, they're rebooting Masters of the Universe with a live-action film that's apparently slated for 2026. Nicholas Galitzine has been cast as He-Man, and I primarily think of him as the Harry Styles-coded love interest from the Anne Hathaway boy band rom-com. But for now, we're going to look back at the 1987 movie. The good, the bad, the ugly, two of those things more than the other one. Part 1. All flash, no substance. Let's start by doing a quick recap of the movie plot. Skeletor has captured the sorceress and taken over Grayskull. He-Man, Teela, Man-at-Arms, and a rubber-faced nightmare named Gwildor escape by using an interdimensional key that sends them to Earth. They team up with a couple of Earth teens to keep the key safe after Skeletor sends his minions after them. Eventually, Evil Lyn tricks one of the teens into giving her the key. He-Man barters for the life of his friends by offering to be Skeletor's love slave. I mean, not really, but kind of. Instead of taking the key, they kind of just erase its programming. However, one of the scrappy Earth teens is in a band and remembers the correct sequence of notes to get everyone back to Grayskull and rescue He-Man. Skeletor becomes a god, but He-Man is still able to defeat him. The day is saved. Probably the worst element of this movie is the pacing. Just so much of the plot takes place on Earth. By the way, if you went into this not knowing that most of the movie would be set on Earth, then the hard cut from our heroes to Robbie's ribs and chicken would be very startling. But it's a lot of contrived running around that seems designed to make it feel like the plot is progressing while nothing is actually happening. For example, the scrappy Earth teens are named Julie and Kevin, and after they find the key in a graveyard, they go to the high school gymnasium to set up for Kevin's band to play later, and then Kevin randomly leaves to go show the key to a guy who owns a music shop. They think the key is a synth, which is weird because the key looks like this, and 80s synthesizers looked like this. Anyway, while Kevin's gone, Skeletor's goons attack the high school. So Kevin arrives at the music shop and almost immediately discovers that something happened at the high school. So he leaves to go back to the high school. And then he goes to Julie's house. And then Skeletor's goons arrive at Julie's house. And then they leave Julie's house. And then our heroes arrive at Julie's house. And then they all go to the music shop. And then Skeletor's goons arrive at the music shop. And the only main plot event that's happening throughout all of these scenes is that Skeletor's minions want the key and they can't get it. And that's it. That's most of the middle of the movie. There's also a classic Burger King product placement. There are just numerous cuts back and forth between Skeletor at Grayskull telling He-Man, "I'm gonna kill ya. I'm gonna kill you real soon," and then back to our heroes on Earth trying to figure out how to work the key to go save He-Man, and then back to Grayskull with Skeletor being like, "Any minute now, any minute, I'm gonna kill you," and then back to Earth, and then back to Grayskull, and then back to Earth, and every scene is just dragged out to an unnecessary degree.
Okay. Ba da da da. Ba da 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 da. Ba da 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 da. Ba. Wait a minute. I've got it.
That's the biggest issue, and now I have a list of smaller complaints I would like to relate to you. Sub-bullet 1, Gwildor eats flesh. At Robbie's Ribs and Chicken, Gwildor uses a grappling hook to steal a bucket of ribs and chicken, their specialty, and it just something about watching that hairy rubber puppet mask get covered in sauce while uselessly gnawing on a rib just fills me with a nauseous sense of unease.
I wonder why they put the food on these little white sticks.
Tila and Gwildor have apparently never eaten ribs before and are shocked and horrified to learn that this used to be an animal.
Those are rib bones.
Are they vegetarians on Eternia? I didn't think so. I Googled it, and I feel like the Google AI was chastising me for even asking. The focus of the He-Man stories and cartoons is on action, adventure, and the battle between good and evil, not on the characters' dietary habits, Christina. Even though I don't think the human characters are vegetarians in the original, it still feels kind of ominous that Gwildor now has a taste for flesh.
It tasted good.
Sub-bullet 2, Julie's dead parents. One of the subplots for our scrappy Earth teens is that Julie's parents died in a plane crash about a year ago. We later see a news article about their deaths. Julie blames herself because she ditched them that day to go hang out with her boyfriend, Kevin. To escape the bad memories, Julie is not even waiting until her high school graduation. She is moving to New Jersey tonight.
It's not very romantic for our last date.
New Jersey, new life. That's what I always say.
It was a plane crash. Those things just happen.
They died in a plane crash. She's about to get on a plane, Kevin. Later, Julie is holding onto the key while the rest of our heroes are fighting the bad guys. And then she sees her dead mom. The dead mom is like, "No, Dad and I had to fake our deaths because of work." The work is very mysterious and important.
Oh, I'm so sorry I had to go through all of that, Julie. But we had to disappear. We're doing very important, very secret work.
And Julie has no follow-up questions. She just immediately accepts that her parents were secret agents or whatever and gives her dead mom the key. But it wasn't her dead mom. It was Evil Lynn.
Thank you, my darling.
Julie's like, "That woman took the key."
That woman took the key!
Let's move!
No, Julie, you gave it to her. At the very end, when Julie and Kevin are sent back to Earth, Gwildor actually sends them back in time to the morning of the plane crash so Julie can stop her parents from dying. She also apparently will have to relive her entire senior year of high school, but they don't address that. It's an emotional moment for Julie and Kevin, who woke up realized he'd gone back in time, and immediately booked it to Julie's house to try to save her parents. However, what this tells us, the audience, is that the actual relevant storyline of this movie, the emotional touch points and character arcs, revolve around Julie and Kevin, the scrappy Earth teens. There are no real character arcs for He-Man or the other characters. They're just supplementary figures to the narrative surrounding these kids. The way these characters are used for flashy surface level entertainment and then quickly discarded kind of reminds me of how kids would play with action figures. You kind of just mash them together for a while and then toss them aside when it's time for dinner. Which would be really interesting framing if it were intentional, but it's not. This is supposed to be a movie about He-Man. It's just poorly written and badly structured. Sub-bullet 3. I don't know if I'm supposed to laugh. I don't know what tone this movie is going for. There are times where it feels like it wants to be a comedy. Like we get some fun banter between He-Man and Man-at-Arms when they're preparing for battle.
How do you feel?
I'm feeling a little hungry.
Think they don't like us?
No, they're just lonely. They miss us.
We get Gwildor parading around in Julie's dead mom's clothes. But then, one thing that bothered me is that they're driving around in this hot pink classic car that Gwildor hotwired, and at one point inside of the car, you have He-Man, Teela, Man-at-Arms, Gwildor, Julie, and Kevin. How did they all fit? I feel like just a shot of them crammed inside this car in dead silence would have been hilarious. But no, they can't even give us that. Also, I can't even get a read on what the vibe is supposed to be between He-Man and Julie. He rescues her from the bad guys, and this mostly naked, extremely muscled man is carrying around this girl and comforting her when she's scared. And I feel like this is a situation in other stories that would read as romantic, but there is absolutely zero chemistry between Julie and He-Man. And I don't even know how old the characters are supposed to be here. Like, Julie is probably 18, and He-Man, in the cartoon, Prince Adam is 16 at the start, but this isn't based on the cartoon. This is based on the mini-comic, and the actor is like almost 30, so I have no idea. I don't think it should be romantic, but I do think it's weird that they're giving us these scenes, but ignoring the implication. Sub-bullet 4. Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? There's a cop investigating the attack on the high school, and he is one of those horribly annoying, terribly incompetent adult characters that you sometimes get in media for children.
You're not getting nothing till I get some answers.
He-Man! Someone's following us!
What the hell is that?
Kevin shows up at the school looking for Julie, and his insistence that Julie was there seems to really piss this cop off, and he forcibly drags Kevin to Julie's house. He's just perpetually angry and suspicious.
Oh, great. What are you doing? Huh? You arresting me?
Oh, we're gonna go look for your girlfriend, just like you said. We'll try her house first. I bet you know where that is.
He's all like, oh, Julie? Huh? Well, we're gonna look for Julie, and we're gonna find her. And it's like, good! She's missing! And somehow the cop ends up getting dragged along throughout most of the rest of the movie. Like, he shows up during a fight between our heroes and Skeletor's goons, and he's like trying to arrest everybody, acting like they're teenage troublemakers when these are clearly aliens with laser weapons. He attempts to arrest them all again when they're in the park or wherever trying to fix the key to return to Grayskull, and he ends up getting pulled along with them. And then when he gets to Grayskull, he's just like, well, might as well shoot things.
All right, Picos, you want to play games? Let's play!
The only good part of his story is the last scene in the Grayskull throne room when he's like being treated as a hero and he's sitting there with a cute blonde on his lap and the teens are like, "You're really not coming back to Earth?"
You kidding? What am I gonna go back there for? And look what I got here. I got a castle, I got a view, I got clean air, I got a beautiful woman, huh?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't go back to Earth either. Reminds me of Bellina the chicken from Return to Oz. But he was such a frustrating and unnecessary character. Like a well-written cop who is usually very by the book, but he realizes that this situation is kind of weird, but he just decides to go with it. Like that type of character might have had an interesting dynamic with somebody like Tila or Man-at-Arms, but no, that's not what we got. Sub-bullet 5, miscellaneous observations. At one point, Julie throws straight ammonia into Beastman's face. She pulls it off of a very conveniently located janitor's cart. Getting ammonia right in the eyeballs should have blinded him, but at least they'll smell him coming now. The janitor at this school is named Carl, and he wears a Letterman's jacket. Makes me wonder if he was a former high school quarterback and like he took this job because he wants to feel like he's reliving his glory days, but he's actually just kind of sad. Skeletor has eyes, and that is weird to me. Frank Langella also does an incredible job as Skeletor. His performance is the best thing in this movie, and you can tell that he is absolutely loving this role.
Madness. I demand the destitution, shame, and loneliness of scorn. It is my destiny. It is my right. Nothing will deter me from it.
It feels very different than the cartoon, because again, they're not adapting the cartoon, they're adapting the mini comics that came with the action figures. But either way, every one of his scenes is just amazing.
And as you die, so will I be reborn.
So amazing that I can forgive them for not giving Skeletor super ripped abs. Apparently, they didn't want Skeletor to be sexy. Good luck. Hey, why does this movie randomly resemble Star Wars sometimes? By the way, I only just realized that Courtney Cox's name has one more E than I expected. I also looked up the name Courtney, and apparently it means short nose. Part 2, the dollar store version of He-Man. You may think I'm going to criticize the 1980s-ness of He-Man, and I'm not. I have a deep and unyielding fondness for practical effects and early low-quality CGI, even if I also make fun of those things sometimes. However, in this movie, the things that are crappy aren't crappy because it was the 80s. They're crappy because the production had issues and then ran out of money. In my opinion, the problem is mostly the script. It is just paper thin. And I talked about this a little bit earlier, where it's only the Earth kids who get anything resembling an arc, and He-Man and the other characters who you actually went to this movie to see are basically just set dressing. I will say that in terms of appearance, the characters don't 100% resemble their cartoon or comic counterparts, but I do think that everyone has the foundations of their standard costume. They've just added like spandex gray jumpsuits underneath everything so that people wouldn't be showing a bunch of skin. Except He-Man, of course. He's barely dressed and oiled up, as nature intended. If they made everyone's outfits look exactly like their cartoon or comic counterparts, then I feel like this movie would visually resemble Barbarella, which I would be fine with, but then I feel like it probably wouldn't be for kids. We'll see what the 2026 movie does. I bet the 2026 movie is not going to have a single gray spandex jumpsuit anywhere in sight, except Gwildor. You may have noticed, but Orko's not here. And it's because Orko levitates. So they decided he'd be too expensive, and they replaced him with this guy. I feel like they could have just had Orko walk around. By the way, this movie killed the Cannon Group. Well, it's credited as one of the financial flops that led to the demise of the Cannon Group. There are many well-documented issues with the production. Things like Mattel not sending their checks on time, or the movie running out of money before filming the big He-Man and Skeletor showdown, and the director needing to fund it himself. Which, when you watch the movie, you can visually tell that the scene where He-Man and Skeletor fight at the end, like the big climax of the movie, is very visually different from the rest of the movie. And this is why, because it was filmed after the fact and paid for by like one dude. But if you look at the IMDb trivia page, there is an insanely long list of submissions detailing so many other issues with the filming, both major things and more trivial problems. Things like people's costumes causing them actual physical pain, or forcing them to marinate in their bodily fluids like saliva and sweat. It's just a lot. Although I will say to take this information with a grain of salt, because they don't list sources for the different details. Like, this just is the source. This IMDb trivia page is the source. So I don't know where this information came from, but I will say that it does all make sense with everything else that I've read. Like, there's nothing that jumps out at me and makes me say, well, that's not true. And I didn't intend to fact check anything on this page because that would take forever. I would live and die in this chair. But I did double check the claim that She-Ra was originally supposed to be in this movie. And it turns out that she was. Gary Goddard posted his original costume design and the script pages on Facebook. And looking at her outfit, I bet you $10 she would have ended up wearing a gray spandex jumpsuit under that. Part 3. He-Man and Skeletor's complicated relationship. There is something very intense between He-Man and Skeletor in this movie.
It's not her you want, it's me. It's always been between us.
Silence!
Which, honestly, I'm in favor of arch-nemeses who are weirdly obsessed with each other. But this does seem kind of one-sided.
Wait till He-Man arrives. He'll see to you.
Really?
You know, Skeletor's like, "Ah, He-Man, you and I are trapped in the eternal embrace of good versus evil, forever entwined." And He-Man is just like, "Why are you so obsessed with me?" He-Man starts fighting, and this is Skeletor's face. Skeletor makes him an offer.
I give you a choice. Return with me to Eternia as my slave and save their despicable lives.
And He-Man agrees. Skeletor is just having the best day.
The people of Eternia shall see you kneeling to me.
Kinky. Still kinky. Skeletor has He-Man whipped, but it's actually a CGI laser whip, so the actor has to kind of just like writhe around. I feel like now is an appropriate time to remind you that 50 Shades of Grey started out as a Twilight fan fiction titled Master of the Universe.
The Alpha and the Omega.
Oh, now Skeletor's getting into Omegaverse? Also kinky. He-Man and Skeletor face off, which is a pun because Skeletor doesn't have a face.
I told you it was always between us.
Oh, I ache to smash you.
There it is. Part 4, Return of the Beast. At the end of the movie, the heroes win by knocking Skeletor down into a vat of ooze. Like he's a Batman villain. And then there's a post-credit scene where Skeletor rises from the ooze. If he were a Batman villain, I feel like this would be the origin story of how he got the skeleton face, which that sends me on a whole mental tangent of wondering if Skeletor just comes from a race of skeleton-faced people, or if he had some sort of accident or like a curse that turned him from a regular guy like into the skeleton face, and then he had to change his name from like Robert to Skeletor. The lore could be out there and I just don't know it. Robert's origin story. Anyway, there was a pitch for a sequel to Masters of the Universe that unfortunately never got made. And I say unfortunately because it sounds like the most insane sequel pitch that I have ever heard. Some sources claim that it would have been titled Masters of the Universe 2, Revenge of the Beast. Skeletor would come back to Earth and possess the body of a rich tech businessman named Dark, who runs Dark Industries. And He-Man would follow him, disguised as a professional quarterback. I hope that turns out to be the real plot of the 2026 He-Man movie. By the way, Gwildor appeared as a character in the 2024 Masters of the Universe Revolution Netflix series.
I am Gwildor of Thenor, locksmith and inventor.
And it's not just that they reused the character design. This is the same guy.
We need the man who built the cosmic key.
He specifically talks about the cosmic key, and they discuss their adventure across the universe.
It's Duncan. I was man at arms back when we traveled across the universe.
He talks a lot about tones and music.
Tone-deaf tortums. Always playing notes they never understand.
So, is this whole movie actually canon? Like, are Julie and Kevin canon in the He-Man universe? Is Gwildor just a thing we have to accept now? Don't worry, the cartoon made it up to me by giving He-Man a magical girl transformation sequence. It's everything I didn't know I always wanted.